Composing a song, whether from the lyrics or the melody, can take from weeks to months. However, when it comes to a song that seeks to transcend and become a sales hit, it can take years or be forgotten, either due to exhaustion in its composition or creative blocks. However, there are some songs that came at the right time and place for their authors, being the consequence of an experience that would mark their lives, and at the same time, allow them to quickly conceive the most distinctive hits of their musical careers. Often without imagining the value of their sacrifice for the success of those songs that would stand the test of time. Remember to subscribe and leave your like to keep making more videos. You can also find these and other stories on our website, storiesbehindsongs.com. Without more to say, this is the iceberg of hits created in a short time. Number 8. All You Need Is Love, The Beatles.
All you need is love.
In 1967, satellite communication technology was generating a lot of interest among television networks worldwide, and BBC producer Aubrey Singer was in charge of the first television show to be broadcast via satellite. The program would be called Our World, and around 15 countries would participate, showcasing something distinctive about their nation. To represent England, the BBC commissioned the Beatles to prepare a song. Due to the lack of time before the broadcast date, John Lennon wrote lyrics that spoke of love as a universal concept and the only way to view the world. This global message took on a more pacifist stance rather than a romantic one, as there were at least 3 wars happening in the world that year, the most notable being the Vietnam War. John Lennon finished the song in just 10 days, and when the band performed it live, they were accompanied by members of other bands such as Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, Eric Clapton, among others, who set aside their differences and joined in the chorus of this song. The song quickly went from being an anthem to becoming a political ideology for the generations of young people protesting against the war, becoming a fundamental part of the hippie culture of the 1960s. Number 7. Rock and Roll, Led Zeppelin. According to guitarist Jimmy Page, the band was finishing recording the song 4 Sticks for their 4th album, Led Zeppelin 4, at the old mansion of Headley Grange. During a creative block, the band took a break, and at that moment, drummer John Bonham started playing the intro to Little Richard's song, Keep a Knockin'. Bonham used to warm up with that intro, but this time when Jimmy Page heard it, he quickly picked up his guitar and started playing a Chuck Berry-style riff that fit perfectly with the drums. 15 minutes later, they noticed that the recording tapes were still rolling and that they had practically recorded most of a finished song. Robert Plant liked the composition and wrote lyrics that reflected the nostalgia and desire to return to the glorious days of classic rock and roll. Over time, Robert Plant realized that the new composition turned out to be a hit at live concerts and became a fundamental part of their set list. Similarly, critics came to name it as the most dynamic hard rock song in music. Number 6. About a Girl, Nirvana. According to Nirvana bassist Krist Novoselic, Kurt Cobain secretly had a great admiration for the Beatles. During a rehearsal where they were presenting new songs, the bassist recalls that Kurt spent the previous night listening to the album Meet the Beatles over and over in his small apartment, almost without sleeping. The next day, Kurt presented the song. The drummer asked him for the name, and Kurt, not having a title ready, simply said it was about a girl. Although the song sounded good and everyone in the band liked it, Cobain didn't want to include it in the first album because, being a pop song, he was afraid of disappointing punk and underground fans. However, the producer of the album Bleach included it, and without much fanfare, it went unnoticed until their performance on MTV Unplugged in 1993, where it later became one of their most distinctive songs and allowed Nirvana to become a popular band beyond the grunge genre. At the beginning of MTV Unplugged, Kurt himself mentions before starting the song that it was one of his first songs, but not everyone had it in mind. Kurt originally composed the song for his girlfriend, Tracy Marander, who had mentioned to him the fact that he hadn't written a song for her before. However, due to the problems they were going through in their relationship, Kurt never mentioned that it was inspired by her, and Tracy Marander only found out in 1988 when she read the band's biography written by Michael Azerrad. Number 5. Jumpin' Jack Flash, The Rolling Stones. It is said that the song was composed during a rainy early morning at Keith's country house in southeast England. Keith Richards and Mick Jagger were composing until very late without achieving anything, as they wanted to return to their original blues and folk style after releasing their experimental albums, which had turned out to be a failure. Mick Jagger, almost asleep, got quite a scare when he heard a strange noise of footsteps quickly passing by his window and, filled with terror, asked what it was. Keith Richards looked out to investigate, and once the mystery was solved, he explained that it was his gardener, Jack Dyer, a country Englishman who was a great guy, also known as Jumping Jack, and what Mick heard were his rubber boots used to cross and jump through the rain. Keith Richards has stated that the incident cleared their minds to the point of being able to pick up his guitar and start composing with the phrase, Jumping Jack. Later, Mick Jagger modified the phrase to Jumpin' Jack Flash as a play on words that also referred to the methadone pills used in the treatment of heroin addicts during the 60s. The phrase, "it's a gas," alludes to the well-known euphoric effect experienced by users of the pills. The Rolling Stones made a promotional short film for this song in 1967. And it is said that by painting their faces and wearing wigs, they inspired members of other bands like Alice Cooper and Kiss to start using makeup as part of their style, thus inspiring the creation of the glam rock genre. Number 4. Yellow Ledbetter, Pearl Jam. According to guitarist Mike McCready, the lyrics of this painfully melancholic song came from an improvisation in the studio, as singer Eddie Vedder didn't have the lyrics ready, and at the moment of recording, he just started singing whatever came to mind. The second take was chosen, but it wasn't released on the band's debut album, and only saw the light a year later as part of the B-side of the 1992 single Jeremy, and in subsequent compilation albums. To this day, it is one of their most popular songs, and one they often use to close their concerts. The lyrics of the song seem to have no concrete meaning, and are different in live performances. However, Eddie Vedder commented in 2008 that the song is anti-patriotic and was inspired by the brother of his friend from Chicago, Tim Ledbetter, who served in the First Gulf War. Sometime later, his friend received a yellow letter informing him that his brother had died in the war overseas. When they went for a walk on the beach to process the news, Eddie Vedder recalls that they passed by an American flag, and next to it were people getting out of a Porsche. Vedder's friend saluted the flag and the people as a sign of respect for the war his brother fought in, but his salute was not returned, and instead, he was looked at with disapproval because of his appearance.
I don't know where there's a box or a bag.
Number 3. Don't Cry, Guns N' Roses.
Sorry, there's something in your eyes.
Axl Rose has stated that both he and his bandmate Izzy Stradlin dated the same girl known by the nickname Monique Lewis. Axl Rose became close friends with her after she broke up with Izzy, and shortly after starting a brief romance, Axl quickly became obsessed with her to the point of tattooing her face on his right arm. Soon after, Monique realized that the relationship was not what she expected and was not going to work out. One day, while Axl was outside the Roxy, the famous Hollywood nightclub, she decided to break up with him. Axl couldn't contain himself and broke down in tears, and Monique could only console him by saying, "Don't cry." This allowed Axl to seek out his childhood friend Izzy Stradlin and make amends to continue with the band. Later, Axl showed him a very sad lyric he had written, and Izzy showed him a very sad guitar riff he already had in mind, thus composing the song in just 5 minutes. The song was not included in the band's debut album because the budget was not enough to produce it with the quality they wanted. However, it became a favorite in their live performances. Axl even said that the song was his ace up his sleeve and one of the main reasons they were hired to play in Los Angeles nightclubs. Number 2, I Can't Get No Satisfaction, The Rolling Stones. It is said that during the Rolling Stones' third tour in the United States, one of their live performances ended in complete disaster, and they couldn't play more than 4 songs. This served as a stimulus for Keith Richards, who, after falling asleep in a Florida hotel, felt a riff accompanied by the phrase, "Can't get no satisfaction," come to his mind. Keith Richards suddenly woke up and turned on the recorder to play the first few bars that were still in his mind. The next morning, he didn't remember what had happened, and upon checking the tape, he discovered that 2 minutes of the main tune and 40 minutes of his snores had been recorded. The next day, Richards showed the recording to Mick Jagger, who completed the lyrics while sitting by the pool at their hotel in just 10 minutes. He wanted to write something that denounced the rampant capitalism they had experienced upon arriving in North America, as well as adding the dissatisfaction he felt from not getting responses from girls during their period. After recording the song, Keith sought to replace the riff with a horn line. However, he was lent a newly released distortion pedal by Gibson called Fuzz Tone, which gave a level of distortion that Keith found exaggerated. But trusting it was just a demo, he let it go and continued with the tour. The band's manager saw the demo as a potential single, and shortly after, Keith recalls being in Minnesota when he suddenly heard the demo on a radio station. At first, he thought it was a mistake, but gradually he observed how the single became the #1 in the country. Mick Jagger comments that this was the song that really made the Rolling Stones, allowing them to go from being just another band to becoming a huge and monstrous band, capturing the irritation and frustration of the youth of the time who were dissatisfied with the status quo. Number 1. Billie Jean, Michael Jackson.
She was more like a beauty queen from a movie scene.
The lyrics describe a woman who claims to have a child with the narrator, who denies it all the time and only remembers the warnings from people and his mother about not playing with young girls' hearts. Jackson has stated that the song was inspired by fans known as groupies, who always sought to get involved with anyone who played in their city. Michael recalls that while he was in the Jackson 5, his older brothers were surrounded by young women claiming to have a child related to them, and he didn't understand why these girls lied. However, this allowed him to write the song in just 5 minutes, and he felt it would become a big hit. According to biographer Randy Taraborelli, Michael himself frequently received letters from these young women and usually ignored them. However, one of them got so upset by not receiving a response that she continued sending more and more letters over several months, becoming increasingly indignant and aggressive, to the point of causing Michael nightmares. Finally, he received a package containing the admirer's graduation photo and a gun inside. Jackson was horrified, as the letter asked the singer to use the gun on himself at a specific day and time, as she would do the same after ending her supposed baby's life. She claimed that if they couldn't be together in this life, they would be in the next. Michael was very distressed during those months until he later learned that the girl ended up being admitted to a psychiatric hospital. If you liked the video, share it with your friends and family so they can learn more about these topics. Remember, you can leave us comments about other bands or singers whose stories behind their songs you'd like to know. Until next time.